We are talking about the movie Death House, the much anticipated movie billed as the Expendables of horror, directed by B. Harrison Smith. And the main selling point of this movie is its cast of horror icons, especially ones of yesteryear, of kind of the 80s and 90s. So just check out a list of names in this cast. So you've got Kane, Hodder, Sid Haig, Dee Wallace, Bill Moseley, Barbara Crampton, Tony Todd, Michael Berryman, Felicia Rose, Lindsay Hartley, Vernon Wells, to name just some there. So the actual premise of this movie is we have two agents of somewhere basically go to investigate this death house, which is a kind of prison for the worst of the worst, and it's a experimental prison that deals with all sorts of things, and also various kind of research. And we're explained that obviously there's 9 or so different levels, with the 9th level housing the kind of the 5 evils, which are sort of supernatural in origin. And these two agents are there for reasons, and ultimately there's an EMP that kind of goes off in the prison, and ultimately knocks out the kind of the power, thus causing all the prisoners to kind of revolt and kind of escape. And these two prisoners, these two agents, and the kind of any hospital staff that they may come across, try to escape and ultimately stop the evil from getting out. So let's talk Death House. So this one is much anticipated by many people, as I've mentioned, primarily due to the kind of the cast here, and it is an impressive cast. There's no getting around it. It is quite fun watching this movie and spotting all these familiar faces that horror fans will know. You know, you've even got kind of Gunnar Hansen in a way that they kind of use some stock footage of him, although it looks a little bit rubbish. I won't lie, but. You know, it's all fun doing that. There's many kind of faces here that you'll kind of recognise. Oh, I know that guy, I know that girl, for example, from horror movies or B movies. You've got Lloyd Kaufman, for example. So that's all quite fun. And there are a couple of scenes that I feel are kind of work for a kind of a good horror visual. There's a scene where these kind of our protagonists go into a cell which is for the 9, which are these kind of like zombie looking people, and that's quite effective. But man, I am reaching for some positives with this one. What a waste of an opportunity this movie is. It's too busy trying to set up a sequel that clearly involves Tony Todd. It is a bad film. This is possibly one of the worst, most egregious movies I've seen, because it just wastes its cast. I mean, a lot of the cast here are already in cameos. I think probably Dee Wallace and Kane Hodder get the kind of the meatiest roles out of the kind of the named talent, I suppose. But let's just kind of break down why I think it's so bad. Let's talk about the technical side of things first of all. First of all, the movie is far too dark. I mean, yes, it's meant to take place in an underground prison that's had an EMP blast, so there is that problem. But you've got to kind of write your way out of these situations, unfortunately, because you just can't see what's going on for half the time. It is way too dark for really kind of it to be visually kind of interesting. So they have to, you know, as a filmmaker, you have to come up with ways to, you know, to make things work on screen. And unfortunately, this one, most of the scenes take place in very kind of dark hallways, and you can't see what's going on. So that's the first thing. With the exception of the scene that involves the 9, which I think is very well done, I think the gore here and the effects are actually quite poor, to be honest. The gore effects look quite cheap, and there's some visual effects here that look terrible. I mean, there is various kind of lights and stuff, and, you know, smoky effects and that sort of thing that are kind of obviously put over the kind of the film, but they just look really cheap and nasty. So the visual effects aren't particularly good. The acting, I've got to say, isn't good. Our two kind of main characters, if you like, unfortunately their acting is not on the good side. And even some of our more established actors don't seem to be able to really put in a good performance. Maybe with the exception of Kane Hodder, who I think is probably fares the best out of everyone here. But the majority of the other cast, and I include Dee Wallace in this, who is you know, an established actress. Barbara Crampton's not so bad, maybe, but everyone else is just poor. Very poor. It just looks like they haven't done many takes. I've said this about another film I reviewed recently as well. It just seems like they've got a take and that's cool, that'll do, let's kind of move on. And the performances seem muted, not enthusiastic, and overall just kind of crap in some areas. The biggest and worst thing, though, is the story. Because it's just nonsense. The story is the narrative is terrible. It's just a confusing, convoluted mess. What a waste! What a waste of these actors. This movie, they should have put more in behind the scenes rather than in front of. Because to be honest with you, a lot of these kind of like these cameos, and they are only cameos, don't really mean much if the story is just incomprehensible. And it ultimately just becomes a complete muddled mess that doesn't kind of make any sense. I mean, you have to see it to believe it. It's just all over the place. What a shame. And it's just, you know, down to the kind of the smallest kind of details about what they're actually doing with, you know, what they're actually doing with the killers here, the way they're kind of, this kind of prison that it has this kind of like virtual environment and stuff. Everything down to the kind of like from the smallest detail right down to the kind of the whole narrative structure of this movie is just terrible. God, what a waste. I mean, this is just a poor movie. So there can be some enjoyment to be had through kind of spotting the various kind of like horror icons. That is fun. And like I said, there's one or two scenes that I feel are effective. But things are just left hanging, things aren't explained, we're just meant to accept, oh yeah, that's clearly a thing then. Yeah, and it's just terrible, but the agents are terrible. Overall, this movie is bad on nearly every count, so I cannot recommend this movie outside of the fact that if you just want to have you know, watch this movie because it's got so many kind of stars in it, but don't be expecting them to do very much. It's just, most of the cameos that we do have, you know, are clearly on, they're just at the actor's convenience. I'll just sit in this chair and we'll do some green screens around it, and you know, that stuff like that. So, with the exception of probably, like I've said, Kane, Hodder, Barbara Crampton and Dee Wallace, they're the only ones who actually do anything. Everyone else is just a kind of a nothing role. Really, really kind of a waste of an opportunity here, and you know, I would hope that this would be a lesson to put money in better areas rather than kind of spending it all on the cast. It's just not going to hold, you know, it's just not going to hold up, unfortunately. So overall, this movie was a massive waste of an opportunity, which makes it very frustrating. So I'll give it a 3 out of 10, and those points are really just down for the fun of watching these kind of like these cast members pop up throughout the movie. Apparently there is a sequel in the works, so we'll see if that's any better, but it ain't looking good. 3 out of 10, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.